they do anymore.
Well, yeah, you're getting old.
Getting? Hello, I've arrived.
Don't be mean to yourself, Dad.
Much?
That's our job.
Oh, okay. I'll try not to.
Okay.
Yeah, you're stealing our job, Dad.
Okay. All right. What's our fact number 5? I'll leave room for Dad to do a drum roll later.
Our fact number 5, black is called Black on White. The first printed book in the world, the Gutenberg Bible, featured black type on white paper because the contrast between the two colors was the easiest to read. The mass production of printed books was only possible with the invention of a new kind of printer's ink, made by mixing soot, turpentine, and walnut oil.
Cool.
Hey, if I need to print something, soot, turpentine, and walnut oil.
You're good to roll.
I can make my own ink now. Thank you.
All right, absolutely.
You're welcome.
So is that all 5 episodes? Or is that all 5 facts?
It was.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you not keep track of the 5 wonderful, amazing black?
I was trying to lead.
Facts?
Sometimes she sneaks in extra facts and stuff, so I was trying to lead to that if that's where she was going.
She was trying to save room for our extra special guest.
And that's fine. That's fine. I just, I try to be a good dad. I try.
And I try to listen to you.
Okay.
We get along so well. So, if we're going to talk Men in Black, the first thing we got to talk is Point Pleasant. And specifically the Mothman. Everybody knows the story. And we've covered the Mothman on our program, but I made the decision when we did to stick to just the Mothman because I feel like to look at Point Pleasant, you have to look at both, and we will look at Point Pleasant all by itself. But when we were doing the Mothman, I wanted to cover it because it's been seen other places than Point Pleasant. Like it was seen in Chernobyl, according to people before that went up. It's been seen recently in Chicago. So I wanted to focus on the Mothman, and we were also doing the Butterfly people on that show. So this show I kind of want to focus on the Men in Black. And in Point Pleasant, they were everywhere. So much so, in fact, that John Keel, who is an amazing researcher, he was like, we have to be careful with our reports of Men in Black because he thinks in some instances they were misidentifications because he was on a payphone calling a tow truck and he was reported as a man in black. So, but by the same token, John Keel, while he was in Point Pleasant because he was working the Mothman case, whenever there was a report of Men in Black, he would go. Like, he would find out, he would head to people's houses. He wanted to see them. He wanted to meet them. And whenever he did, he tried to have conversations with them as they would just walk away from him. But yeah, John Keel was very into Men in Black. And so unknown persons were reported to frequent the small town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, usually dressed from head to toe in black suits, white shirts, black ties, and black shoes, which all appeared to be perfect in appearance, but yet completely out of style for the time of 1966 and 67. They are said to have asked people questions about the Mothman and told them not to speak about it. Not only did they visit reporter Maury Island and question her about the creature, but one of them is said to have also threatened Mothman witnesses such as Connie Carpenter. A friend of Maury named Dottie Campbell spoke on the subject of the Men in Black interviews. She said that she and Maury were very frightened by them and that Hire had mentioned that to her that these strange men never blinked their eyes. Mothman witness Linda Scarberry said in an interview, the MIB wore black suits, black hats, and sunglasses. They drove black cars, Cadillacs, I think. They looked like human beings, but their skin was somewhat transparent. You could see the veins in their hands very clearly. Their fingers were longer than a normal person's fingers as well. Daddy shook hands with them and said they were awkward in shaking hands. They seemed to not to know what to do or how to shake hands. She also said one of the cars followed us around. There were 3 men in the car. The MIB went so far as to follow us through the drive-thru of a restaurant. We were afraid to turn around and just looked in the rearview mirror at them. A man and a woman carrying a camera visited Mothman witnesses Steve and Mary Mallet, wanting to take a picture of them. The Mallets took down the license plate of the Volkswagen, but the police said the number was non-existent. And then I've already talked about John Keel and him going after various men in black. And in fact, he in spring of 1967, he and a female friend were walking along 42nd and 3rd Avenue in New York when a stranger with a pointed face, which is a common description of the men in black, is that they have pointed faces, deliberately took a photo of them and then turned and ran away. The man was wearing a poorly fitting sports jacket and slacks.
So, what about Gerald? What does Gerald have to say? You're doing all the talking.
Talk.
The more you talk about, I've seen the Mothman movie, as a lot of people have. I didn't know about the Men in Black thing so far as the Mothman conspiracy, prophecy, whatever you want to call it. But this is really making me think of, because I heard something similar. A lot of times when things like this crop up, you look at what else was going on. We know what 1966, 1967, what major event was going on? Drafting for the Vietnam War. I just did a quick Google search. How many people were drafted into Vietnam from West Virginia? It says in total, 36,578 West Virginians served, and most of them began as teenagers. So that was something that was in the national consciousness, so far as things that we were afraid of. I would imagine if I was a parent and I had a teenage son and the Vietnam War starting up, I would be afraid. And other things pop up as a result of our fear. And I don't know. I couldn't even speak anecdotally, but I would wonder, how many of these sightings could also coincide with someone who had a loved one who was drafted or who was eligible to be drafted. Because there's other things like that. Something like I forget what it is, but when we have a Democratic president, we have more vampire movies. When we have a Republican president, we have more zombie movies, and it goes back and forth.
Absolutely.
I might have it reversed, but
I hear what you're saying though.
We all have those kinds of fears, and they don't necessarily make sense, but it's like one of those things, like a Mandela effect, that it affects me, and here I am thinking it's only affecting me, and then I talk to my neighbor, and they share the same fear, but yet we've never had a prior conversation about that.
Right.
So I wonder how much of these sightings also ties into something like that too, where we have like this national fear, and this is what just came out of it. Particularly in West Virginia. I would guarantee probably in 1966, something happened in Southern California, something happened in Maine, and it's just not as, it just didn't resonate as much as the Mothman did. We have a thing for creating monsters out of a generalized fear, and I wonder how much of this came out of that.
Right.
Excellent.
Right, definitely. And I'm with you all the way until they start questioning witnesses. And then it's their behavior that gets me more than anything else. Like, for example, a guy that we haven't covered in Point Pleasant is a guy named Indrid Cold. Now, Indrid Cold, the first time he was seen was by 2 boys in Point Pleasant who they referred to him as the Grinning Man. he was in a black suit. Well, not even a black suit. His suit was like blue, but it was shiny, which really sort of got their attention. And they turned around to look at him, and he just grinned at them. And they don't remember seeing his nose or his ears. They just remember seeing his grin, and it scared them. And then Indrid Cold began visiting people, and like at one point he told. He was visiting people, talking to them about the Mothman case, and they had a little girl, and she asked him if he needed anything, and he told her no, but in 10 minutes you bring me a glass of water. And so in 10 minutes she brings him a glass of water. By that point he's almost shaking. Something is wrong, right? And he takes the pill, and suddenly he's fine.
Weird. Anybody else having a mental picture of the creepy dude from Poltergeist who looked like he was half dead, who whistled when he walked? As you know what I'm talking about.
That's
that white halfway dead looking guy.
I know you're talking about. He might be a dead ringer for Indrid Cold, except his clothes weren't shiny, and that's the only thing.
That was what your description brought to my mind. Sorry. Go ahead.
But Indrid Cold talked to John Keel a couple of times, and he was the strangest person. He seemed to know things about people that people didn't tell him. Often in interviews, he would bring up things that he had no way of knowing. And he also didn't seem to quite get certain things, like that shaking hands thing. Certain cultural things don't seem to come to the Men in Black. Almost everybody reports it, that they do things or they say things in a way that's not that you or I would say, or that's not quite normal. They remind me, if anything, of, and we haven't talked about this, and we will on a future episode, but they remind me, if anything, of the Black-Eyed Kids, because the Black-Eyed Kids, when they're going to wherever they're going, a lot of times they make mistakes. Like one person, when the Black-Eyed Kids came to her door, they asked her if they could use her telegraph. So it's like they don't fit in, kind of. They don't quite understand how things go together. And Indrid Cold is the biggest example I have of that, because while he followed some people around, and they give him an interesting line in the movie The Mothman Prophecies, because he's on the phone. Richard Gere is playing John Keel, and Keel is on the phone with Indrid Cold. And he asked him at one point, "What do you really look like?" And Indrid's answer is it depends on who's doing the looking. And so, and I kind of feel like, and this is going to take me back to a thing I talk about all the time, how I feel like other things kind of come into our reality. And I kind of feel like that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. But I feel like these things kind of come into our reality and they don't entirely understand it. And that's why they have these weird sort of
affects.
Yeah, exactly. That's why they don't understand shaking hands. They don't understand. They don't like. And we'll talk about this later. But at one point, a guy is being interviewed by a man in black and a woman in black, which is nice, to know that they're equal opportunity.
Cool, sure.
But while he's interviewing this guy, he reaches over the woman, he starts groping her. And he's asking, "Is this how you do it? Is this the way it goes?" This is not a normal thing that happens in any society I'm aware of.
No, definitely not ours. Especially in the 1960s. I can't even imagine.
If I can continue,
did that?
Yeah.
Lady would just
please.
If I can continue to play Scully to your Mulder a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still say that you can't necessarily write off a mass hysteria simply because the Salem witch trials was a mass hysteria where people swore up and down they saw the devil or they heard someone reading a spell. And from something that I read, said something like, well, the Men in Black are kind of a stand-in for Lucifer. It's like a modernized Lucifer that, something bad happens and they're somewhere adjacent to it. Or it's the same thing with the devil. It's like, hey, something bad happens. I saw the devil last week.